Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier podcast for Sun Devil football. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healy with DevilsDigest.com.
Joe, the heat is here. It's about 113, 115, and that's just kind of the prelude to the real pain that's coming up. But for the Sun Devils on the recruiting trail, things are heating up in the best possible way.
There you go. You start with some disappointing news, but then you phase right into some good news. Yeah, anybody knows me, man. I like the cooler weather. Although I was in South Dakota a couple weeks ago and I got sick because it was too cold. I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm built for. But yeah, we are in that time of year in Arizona where it's here. It's 1,000 degrees and it's going to be 1,000 degrees for 1,000 days. But you know what? Sun Devils in recruiting are 1,001 degrees among the top teams in the country in terms of recruiting rankings, in terms of some recruiting momentum, things like that. Things that, gosh, a year or two ago, we felt like, ASU might not ever get from out of the cellar in that sort of category and others. So this is yet another just little sign of land. You know what I'm saying? Things are getting better. A lot of work to do and a lot of process that need to unfold. But there is, there are reasons for optimism as we get closer and closer to the start of the 2024 football season and ASU's entry into the Big 12 Conference.
Yeah, if you're going to be sweating your ass off in Phoenix and the Tempe area, might as well be doing so while you're getting lots of verbal commitments for the 2025 class. As Joe alluded to, it's one that has a pretty prestigious at the moment national ranking, and especially within the new Big 12. Things are going pretty well there, and we're going to talk to three of the newest Sun Devil verbals a little bit later on in the show as we kind of break down the wave of 5 commits that happened over a course of 5 days coming off the latest official visit weekend for the Sun Devils. But before we dive into all that, there are some newsworthy items in some other Sun Devil sports. Baseball, Joe, I know that's near and dear to your heart. The season wrapped up kind of in a little sad fashion, as we kind of talked about. Ultimately, ASU did not make the tournament for the 3rd consecutive year. And of course, as is the kind of the main factor when you look at any season ending in college athletics these days, the transfer portal is open. As we record this, it's going to be open through July 2nd. And so far, there has not been a mass exodus, as some people might have feared. But the one name that has publicly jumped in there so far, Joe, it's a noteworthy one.
Yeah, true freshman pitcher Tommy Burns, of course, ASU's opening night starter and Friday night pitcher for a bit there. He had his freshman season pretty much derailed by injuries. He only made 6 appearances, all starts. He had a 1-1 record on the year, but obviously in the early going of things looked really, really good in what he was doing, especially for a guy in his first year at the college level. So he entered the portal, pretty quickly. I don't believe that any decision has been made either way. Haven't even really seen too many reports on, schools you might be considering or visiting or that sort of thing. With college baseball, obviously, it's much more difficult to get updated information as opposed to basketball and football. If just naturally to say with Burns, I mean, if he were to leave, then that's a huge blow, because anyone who pays any sort of attention to Sun Devil baseball will tell you pitching is the issue here. ASU was scoring a ton of runs, especially during that stretch where they were absolutely on fire near the late stage of the regular season. But pitching was an issue more or less throughout the entire season. So when you had a true freshman pitcher, a guy that's going to be at the college level for another year or two, depending, I guess, on his age, and if he were to depart from the university, that's a major, major blow, because, I mean, that is the gatekeeper element of this thing, of what separates ASU baseball under Willie Bloomquist from getting back to the postseason and making some noise and being a major player in whatever conference it's in. Because they're scoring runs, but far too often weren't able to stop the other teams from doing the same. So we'll see how this unfolds. Now, obviously, we've seen cases where guys go into the transfer portal no matter what the sport is, and they end up back. We've seen a lot, of course, where they leave. So hard to, read between the lines on this one quite yet. But again, no matter how you slice it, if he were to leave, that's a huge blow for this program.
The program just simply cannot keep putting out, season team ERAs in the 6s and, approaching 7 year after year. And obviously 3 straight years without a postseason appearance is just something that's not acceptable for Sun Devil baseball, for Sun Devil baseball fans everywhere. And when you have a team that was riding on a lot of young arms and kind of the growth curve and the development. You have one of the bright lights there, even though it was kind of dimmed a little bit due to injury. It's really disappointing. So we'll see what Willie Bloomquist is able to kind of do in response, and some moves that he's going to be able to do in terms of maybe replacing such arms through the portal. He did make one acquisition so far with an incoming transfer. Matt King is coming over from UTSA. He's going to be a senior. Batted over 330 a season ago. Some good strength in the infield coming in.
Yeah, he was second on the team last year with 41 RBI. Started all 55 games in 2024. Projects as a middle infielder, plausible replacement for Steven Ondina. As ASU obviously looks forward to, or looks ahead rather. I don't want to imply this is a fun thing to do. Looks toward having to replace a good chunk of its lineup. We'll see what happens with the draft, but you have a handful of seniors that were contributors this past season. Then you also have a chunk of some very, very meaningful juniors or draft eligible players, the likes of, of course, Jacob Tobias, Ryan Campos, of course, is going to top that list, Nick McLean as well. So we'll see what happens with the draft and what players are selected where, and if anybody returns to ASU who is drafted, which really is a rare thing, at least for ASU. There are only a couple instances in the last decade or so where players have been drafted and have come back. So again, as the weeks and months unfold, we'll see what the personnel looks like with this team. But on the surface, yeah, King is a solid pickup there. So we'll look again. That is one thing, although ASU has had its issues on the mound and still trying to get over that hump to get into the postseason under Willie Bloomquist. Bloomquist has certainly been able to make some very significant acquisitions through the transfer portal the last 2 years. And so one would believe that he can keep that momentum up as well as he looks to replenish this lineup heading into 2025.
Some nice accolades for one seeming foundational piece for the Sun Devil lineup. Brandon Compton was named a freshman All-American by the NCBWA. Guy came in, and I believe still listed on the site as a pitcher, but really made his mark at the plate this year, hitting .361, 15 home runs, 55 RBIs. And so obviously that we talked about, that lineup was not the problem this year, and some young bats really made their mark, up and down there. And Compton was certainly with his light tower power. I think in our preseason we were talking to Willie, and he said that he was intrigued by the power, but just wasn't sure if Compton was ready, to be an everyday contributor at the plate. Well, Compton stepped up and raked home a nice postseason accolade for his work.
Yeah, his career's off to a real hot start for Arizona State. Of course, he missed the previous season due to injury. Dude's just a brick house, man. You see him out there physically. I believe he's one of, if not the most gifted baseball players when it comes to what he can do in the weight room. Dude like me, I appreciate that much. So he's someone that, man, he could just smash. So he's someone that has got a very, very bright future. Of course, it is ASU. And so always have to keep in mind that concern or potential concern of marquee players. Are they going to stick around? And I certainly don't say this specifically implying anything whatsoever about Compton. It's just that we're talking about him right now. So obviously it is kind of white knuckle time, just as it was for basketball, just as it was for football before it, of making sure that you keep all your top guys in addition to going out and replenishing the roster, keeping in mind that variable of the draft and what that will do to you. So, Brandon Compton, really, really proud of what he did. I mean, he was a guy that was doing it pretty much from start to finish, got off, he was someone that just stepped in seemingly day one this season and showed that he could play at this level, and sky's the limit. You figure it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, if he's able to stick around, you have guys breaking out like Compton, Kianvu, just guys that really just kind of burst out on the scene. And if they are able to stick around in Tempe, the lineup should again be pretty good for Willie Bloomquist and his Devils. Switching over to basketball. Now, this is something that like peeling back the curtain a little bit. We've been trying to put together maybe a kind of state of the program basketball show for a while, but they keep making moves, and we've seen in recent weeks them adding a lot of heralded talent as well. But Joe, sometimes as you're bringing in some talented guys in, they kind of fill the roster spots, that might push some others out the door.
Yeah, like Brad and we've been wanting to do this kind of again, state of the union for the basketball program, but like the prerequisite there is like, all right, we're going to wait till they get the roster finalized, because as we have seen, in recent weeks, you can get some major additions out of nowhere. So we don't want to like put a punctuation mark on the state of the program if a day later, because that's how this stuff works, right? They're going to go out and get some 4 or 5 star transfer or, incoming product, or some guy that reclassifies from the 2028 class and he's 12 years old, but he can play ball or whatever. So there's been quite a domino effect, I think is the best way to really describe it. You've had a couple of players from this incoming class, so guys that would be freshmen this season, high school signees, who have asked for their release from their letters of intent. Sammy Yine, if I'm saying his name correctly, and Bo Aldridge. These are two of the signees from that came aboard the signing class very, very early into things. And obviously, as we know, for ASU, they've made some tremendous strides since the end of the regular season, or since the end of the basketball season, rather. So that shuffles it up, because you have guys, not a lot of patience in college basketball. So some of these players either might be told or see the writing on the wall that, hey, playing time is going to be difficult and much more challenging to come by with these other additions that happened. NIL could play a factor when it comes to that sort of thing. So these are, and when it comes to being released from the letter of intent, because that is yet another thing that, you didn't see that years ago. That's a binding thing. Hey, you signed, you're coming here. Maybe you transfer later, but you're going to begin your career here. I think that's something that maybe other coaches might have a different policy on, but it just seems like there's no pushback from Bobby Hurley. And to me, I support that, because if guys don't want to be here, or if they don't want to be anywhere, then you don't want to, hold them hostage. That's not good for anybody. We have seen in this basketball program what can happen when you have somebody in that locker room that, is causing some ripples there. We're talking about a guy that was a 5-star talent himself a couple years back, and that was something that created a little bit of a divide, or at least a lot of stories and headlines. So with these two players being out of the equation, hurts the depth. Does that hurt the overall capability of this team coming up? It remains to be seen, but it's not necessarily something that you feel too terribly heartbroken about. But basically, ASU's in a spot where they have 2 scholarship opportunities that they can provide. And another note on someone that was already out the door, Zane Meeks, the San Francisco transfer who had a cup of coffee with ASU last year. He's going to Wichita State. But yeah, ASU can still fill some additional spots. There was one recruit who, again, similar deal, had gotten out of his letter of intent from Arizona. ASU was thinking maybe they could get in on him as well. They were in the hunt, but I believe he's going to attend Oregon. So we'll see what happens. I don't think it's certainly not mandatory to use every single scholarship. I think sometimes they might just kind of float with 12 guys instead of all 13. But again, we'll see how this plans out. But ASU's got the number 9 class in the country, even with these departures. Second in the Big 12 behind Baylor. So we're still talking about historic stuff here.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. And just kind of, we think back when the season ended and you saw the number of guys that jumped in the portal, some key contributors, the Frankie Collins of the world. And then just kind of, where you fast forward to now and just kind of the narrative that we've seen, and just pretty nice turnaround for Bobby Hurley. And at some point, Joe, we will put together the comprehensive dive into kind of the state of the program after things kind of settled down. But we have also seen, guys like Coach Calipari saying that they might not use all their roster spots. I believe his rationale was, why should I develop guys who are going to go off and play elsewhere? But we'll see. It's obviously a new era of college hoops that is out there. But 2 open spots after the latest couple of moves. So one other note to pass along before we dive into the successes of the football team on the recruiting trail. Graham Rossini has made his first hire as ASU's athletic director, and it is one that is certainly, when you look at the pedigree of the new coach, is pretty impressive. Jamia Jackson was hired as the women's tennis coach, coming to ASU from Princeton, where she was this past season the 2024 Ivy League Coach of the Year. That's obviously a job that historically has not come open for several decades, but one that Graham seems to have at least got a pretty qualified candidate to come in and take over the helm of women's Sun Devil tennis.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. Now former head coach of women's tennis, Sheila McInerney, at ASU for 40 years. I think I was like 2 when she was hired, something like that. I think she was hired in 85. I think was her first season, if I saw it correctly. I mean, that's unbelievable. I don't have all the facts, but I thought I recall seeing something in research that like the women's tennis program has been around since sometime in the 50s, and this is the 3rd head coach that they've had. Like something like that. Like this is wild.
Some Steelers-esque continuity there.
There you go. So I mean, that is a stalwart. I mean, a legend of Sun Devil athletics, and it might be a name that maybe rings a slight bell, to some fans, just depending on how enthusiastic you are about tennis or women's tennis. But I mean, 40 years, my goodness, that is incredible. And of course, she retired. It wasn't as though she was fired or anything like that. Went out certainly on a high note. So Jackson comes in, as you mentioned, the first coaching hire for Graham Rossini as athletic director at Arizona State. I believe she's in her late 30s. As you mentioned, her credentials are impressive. So that's one that to kind of get that ball rolling for him. Him, of course, being Graham Rossini, athletic director. So a big hire to replace someone, again, who had just been a constant at Arizona State in Sun Devil athletics for so long. It's just hard to put into perspective. I mean, gosh, I wonder. I truly do wonder. It'd be an interesting thing to learn. When McInerney was still around last year, how many other college coaches of any sport at Division I had greater tenure than her? I mean, that's just something that you don't. You certainly don't see that in the major men's sports or even other sports along the line. So just an incredible thing. 40 years as a Sun Devil head coach. Enjoy retirement, of course, and we'll see what happens with this hire and those that come in the future by athletic director Graham Rossini.
Yeah, it should be interesting to see if Jax can carry on that legacy, and maybe you can start of another multi-decade tenure here in Tempe. All right, Joe, let's talk some Sun Devil recruiting because it has been going pretty well. As we've talked about over the prior couple shows, here and there as new recruits have come in over the course of this recruiting cycle. This 2025 class continues to be atop the Big 12 in terms of what they've been putting together, and we'll put some numbers to it a little bit later, but it's not just quantity that they're bringing in, it's quality as well, and especially in terms of how it stacks up against their new conference rivals. So over the course of a 5-day period beginning on May 31st, coming off that was actually the beginning of an official visit weekend, ASU reeled off high-profile commitments for 5 straight days. Let's start off, kind of take these things chronologically. The offensive line has been a key point of focus in this class, and for obvious reasons. We saw the issues with depth a season ago, but of course, you just want to have that young talent in that pipeline that you can then supplement through the transfer portal. You don't want to have to necessarily rebuild your line year in and year out through the portal. And so ASU was going where else? To Texas, to Duncanville, Texas. They got a commitment from Desean Bryant on May 31st, 6'4", 250-pounder, a 3-star, and I believe one of 5 O-linemen so far committed in this class. Yeah,
and he had offers from other Big 12 schools. Got to get used to saying that, other Big 12 schools, like Baylor, Houston, TCU, and some others. As you mentioned, from Duncanville, Texas, that city should sound familiar because ASU has done a lot of recruiting there with Rashad Samples when he was with Arizona State. So that's kind of a unique thing that obviously ASU still has a solid pipeline with that prestigious high school, even though that coach is no longer at ASU. You mentioned the size of Bryant, 6'4", 250. We'll see what sort of physical growth he has over his senior year of high school. That if it stays in that range, obviously you're kind of looking at maybe a year or two to put probably 20, 30 pounds on the frame, get in there with Coach Joe and get that Iron Devils going on and, bulk up for the offensive line. But ASU's had some success with that in the past, bringing in those athletic guys that just need to put on, again, 20, 30, 40 pounds over the course of their collegiate career. So we'll see what Bryant's got, but that's a solid pickup. Anytime he can pull folks out of Texas that other Texas schools wanted, that's a big get.
Yeah, I believe a one-time Baylor commit and also a guy that knows how to win. And he's been a part of some extremely successful teams there playing for Rashad Sample's dad, I believe Reginald Samples at Duncanville. Just a guy who's been able to know what it takes to win at a pretty high level. Obviously, you're winning high-level state titles in Texas. You're not just playing some push-around competition. He's been doing it. So as you mentioned, Joe, I think it's some room for growth. So we'll track his progress over the course of this final prep season. Moving on the next day on June 1st, ASU secured another commitment, this time from linebacker Lee Puka Fuimaono, a 6'1", 215-pounder, 3-star out of San Clemente, California. So going back a little bit of Cali Devils action. That's another state that ASU wasn't done with over that weekend. But this is a guy that has a good frame, good nose for the ball, but also, Joe, especially for the linebacker position, he's got some wheels. I mean, he's recently been closing in on 21 miles per hour.
Yeah, from everything I've seen, a real versatile, athletic guy. I believe he plays running back. He's all over the field, just a football player. Had offers from, again, another Big 12 foe, BYU, some solid G5 teams, San Diego State, Colorado State, some others. He's someone that in the things that you read, that ASU feels like they kind of got in on a diamond in the rough at an early point. Someone that could really blow up over the course of his senior season, or someone that just has maybe a higher level of potential at the college level than some of his recruiting pedigree may indicate. And obviously, he's still a solid recruit as far as like the services are concerned, but he's just a decent cry away from like the 4-star status and things like that. So he could maybe qualify. Everybody always likes those diamonds in the rough from recruiting classes, and I think you could probably say that he's one that really fits that bill so far in this list.
The next day, ASU continued the Cali Devils pipeline as they got a commitment from a place that historically has treated ASU pretty well. Corey Butler Jr., 5'8", 170-pound wide receiver from Corona, California, made the pledge. A guy that was noted for his great speed and kind of explosiveness. Smaller frame, of course, but a guy that I know the coaching staff and has been really excited on. And Coach Hines Ward continues to work some good stuff on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I believe he's from Centennial High School, if I'm not mistaken, right? The home of Brandon McGee, Will Sutton, Vontez Burfict, and a list of others that have become Sun Devils over the decades. He had a solid offer sheet. Arizona, BYU, Colorado, Kansas, Oregon, Utah, Washington are among the offers that he had. So though he's a little slight in size, which we'll see kind of be a little bit of a theme here in at least the next recruit that we'll break down, but somebody that comes from a program that's got a lot of history with Arizona State. This is someone that is sought after. So that's anytime you get somebody from that part of the world, that's a good thing.
He's also the teammate of a fellow wide receiver, Tavian McNair, who also was on the visit that same weekend along with Butler, and he's expected to make a decision perhaps a little bit later on this month. So we'll see. ASU definitely in the running there, so perhaps they strike twice at the old Corona Centennial connection there. But as you mentioned, Joe, they weren't done, and Hines Ward wasn't done in getting some explosive, if smaller, wide receivers. Michael Scott, with the nickname Joystick, decided to commit to ASU on June 3rd. 5'9", 160-pounder, a 3-star as well. But this time, instead of Texas or California, ASU went way back east, but a place that Hines Ward knows pretty well, to the state of Pennsylvania, Dallastown to be specific, to get the commitment from Michael Scott, who this past weekend at the OT7 had a great showing, really made some waves out there. And I believe our national rivals reporter included Michael Scott in terms of some of the standouts from that session, who's shown some great playmaking ability, both playing inside in the slot and also as an outside wide receiver.
When this commitment came through, there were many Sun Devil fans whose hearts soared with the Eagles' nest. And I'm going to say right now, I'm going to refuse to call him Joystick. I've seen him be referred to as Mikey. I'm not calling him that. This is Michael Scott. Obviously, any fan of The Office. And the dude's from Pennsylvania. If he were from Scranton, that would just be, oh my goodness, way too sweet. Yeah, so there are going to be a lot of Office jokes when it comes to this dude. A lot of that's what she said, I'm sure, are going to be floating through the internet when he's scoring touchdowns for the Sun Devils. But yes, this is a receiver, again, a sought-after guy. Frank Kush, bless his soul, I'm sure he is happy looking down on the Arizona State for getting a guy from the state of Pennsylvania. Anybody knows the recruiting that Coach Kush did back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, a lot of guys that went on to be legendary Sun Devils came from Pennsylvania. Scott has offers from Kentucky, Pitt, West Virginia. I know Penn State was recruiting him as well. Again, slider in size, similar to Butler. But I know that Kenny Dillingham just likes to get the ball in the hands of the playmakers and let them make plays. And so that's something that gives you the impression that he's going to be able to do that. So a lot of Sun Devil fans, I'm sure, are going to be having some fun once again with that name. And hey, the whole Texas to Tempe thing, even though he's from Pennsylvania, he's from Dallastown, Pennsylvania. So, I mean, that's got a little Texas in it, right? So, again, that I'll give it a half a Texas to Tempe on that particular one.
And rounding out the 5 commitments in 5 days was another wide receiver, even though he doesn't play that at the high school level currently. He's technically classified by the recruiting services as an athlete. Other schools are recruiting him as a defensive back, some at quarterback, where he played for his prep school in New Mexico. But on June 4th, ASU secured a commitment from Cam Dyer, 6'4", 205-pounder, a 3-star from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now, he's also named the Gatorade New Mexico Player of the Year this past season as he's led his school to a state championship. Kind of impressive as well after they rallied from an 0-3 start. Over the course of that, he had 55 total touchdowns, some really like ridiculous video game type numbers. But he's a guy that really was kind of impressed by what the plan that Kenny Dillingham and Hines Ward laid out. Now, if you're going to be a guy making the transition from quarterback to wide receiver, Hines Ward might be the best guy to show you the path. And they're going from prep quarterback, and even got some time there at Georgia, to a I would say soon to be NFL or Pro Football Hall of Famer.
There you go. He's following like the Chad Christensen line of things, quarterback to wide receiver. There's a throwback for a good Sun Devil there. Dyer, that might be like the most intriguing name on the commitment list right now. For the things that you mentioned, 6'3", 202 pounds, got a great frame there. Rivals has him as the number 32 athlete in the country. For me, if you're inside the top 40 at your position group on the recruiting rankings, that always just has seemed to be guys that perform. For those who subscribe to Rivals, which should be everybody that's listening, of course, he has a 5.7 rating in addition to his star status and his position rating. And as folks, again, that know, the 5.7 is right on the cusp of a 4-star ranking. You mentioned he was the 2023 Gatorade Player of the Year in New Mexico. He has offers from Houston, Texas Tech, Utah, threw for about 2,900 yards, ran for about 1,500, had those 55 combined touchdowns that you mentioned. Brad, I'm going to drop a little trivia question on you.
Oh,
put you on the spot here. Can you name the last high school or junior college signee? So we're not talking about transfers that ASU has had from the state of New Mexico.
Boateng?
There you go. Impressive. Yes, Edmund Boateng, 2014, out of New Mexico Military Institute in Roswell.
Right. Yeah, it was it was a military themed school.
Yeah. It's interesting. Okay. Obviously being in a neighboring state, New Mexico, is not necessarily a hotbed for high school or junior college football talent, but it's just always interesting that being in close proximity, that ASU doesn't get more than one guy a decade. So Dyer, once again, very intrigued by what he can bring. Two things here. As you mentioned, he's being recruited all over the place by a number of different teams. But yeah, that's again just something that really catches my attention in a very intriguing way.
Yeah, really impressive young man. You'll all hear from him in just a few minutes. Had a chance to catch up with him, and his journey is definitely interesting, and he had some big things ahead. So I definitely agree that among the 17 commitments as of the time of this recording, definitely one of the ones that, especially when you get him in the hands of a creative offensive mind like Kenny Dillingham, some interesting things can perhaps come of his commitment and signing with the Sun Devils. All right, so just kind of put a bow on this. I mean, right now, as of this recording, 17 total commitments, Joe, in the class, as they currently rank number 15 nationally. Now, I believe during the course of that stretch of 5 and 5. They reach as high as number 11, but some other teams, of course, they're not standing still. They're making some moves. That's number 1 in the Big 12 still. ASU fans might be happy to know that number 16, which is now the total number of teams in the conference, number 16 is U of A. So
I think they have what, two players, if I'm not mistaken.
As of today, 3.
Well, okay. Oh, they have skyrocketed the volume of their signing class here. Okay.
And so a lot of some critics might say, oh, you're just getting bulk. You're just buying, you're going to Costco and getting the recruits that way and just going for quantity. Not so fast. ASU's 3.18 average star rating per Rivals is currently number 2 in the Big 12 among teams with 10 or more commitments. The 3 4-star players that ASU currently has, as we mentioned, Aaron Ia, the tight end recently was elevated to a 4-star, is tied for second in the Big 12. UCF currently has 4. So ASU is getting quantity and quality so far. So we've seen that, when this staff took over a year and a half or so ago, obviously recruiting is a relationship-driven business. And they talked about how, they're going to, obviously trying to hit the ground running, but also that the efforts to build those relationships, the 25s, the 26s, where we're going to start to see some of that pay off. And so far, that promise is coming true to a nice degree so far for the 25s.
Yeah, you certainly have to be thrilled with the progress so far. Now, obviously, a lot of us kind of approach this high school and junior college recruiting very, very differently, naturally, than was the case just a few years ago, because you just look at the numbers, you look at the data, and you wonder, okay, after a year, after 2 years, after 3 years, how many of these players are going to still be around? But that's something I think that you just kind of have to put a little bit of a pin in. You still have that somewhere in your subconscious. Okay, that is a thing. You're probably going to lose a few guys even after year 1. But you don't just enter it with the expectation, okay, you're going to lose all the top guys. What's the sense in doing this? There's no purpose, et cetera, because that's not the case. These are guys that can be foundational pieces of this program moving forward. If they're buying into what ASU is doing now, things could get very, very interesting. Hode Rubino has a great breakdown on devilsdigest.com in the huddle, on what they'll plan to do from this point forward, how many pieces might remain as far as how many further additions might be made to this signing class. So we'll see how that all shakes out. ASU has gotten a great jump start on a good chunk of the nation in terms of the amount of players in its commitment class so far. They've done an incredible job strategically, because ASU had to navigate around a little bit of time, in recent weeks where they couldn't do the recruiting efforts they otherwise would because of the NCAA sanctions. But what did they do? They capitalized with a major recruiting weekend that took place before and after that period. And that is amounted in probably double-digit commitments at this point between the ones that we just broke down that all came from one weekend and the ones that came from what happened before. So you sum it all up, it's just a really, really impressive thing, because it just shows the buy-in that Kenny Dillingham and his staff can convey to athletes, because we know the facts. ASU has struggled on the field mightily the last couple years. NIL is improving, but ASU is certainly far from a leader in that category. So if you don't have those things necessarily leading the way, it's coming. These commitments and connections are coming by way of just genuine relationship building. And the addition of Hines Ward so far, when that hire was made, I just had my questions, because it's just a guy with limited coaching experience. But that is truly paid off, especially at the position that he coaches. So again, there are a lot of guys doing a lot of work on this Sun Devil coaching staff right now. So you got to give them a very, very high grade for what they're doing in recruiting here this summer.
Yeah, some definite positive momentum, and really just kind of, the trend line is moving in the right direction. And after a couple of years in the wilderness, the dark parts of the end of the Herm Edwards era, and just kind of the mess that Kenny and his staff inherited, and the moves they've had to make, and the relationships they've had to repair, the relationships they've had to build. It's pretty impressive so far. Now we'll see if this top 15, top 20 type of class is able to sustain its way until the early signing period that's coming up in December. And I believe next year it will be interesting as well. I believe they're adding a June signing period as well, which this year would have certainly benefited the Sun Devils as well. But recruiting things can change fast. But so far, things are moving in the right direction. And hopefully after a dark couple of years, you mentioned, Joe, after 6 total wins last couple of years, you're really trying to convey and sell people on your vision, on what you're building in with your program. And so far, a lot of very talented young football players are buying in to want to activate the Valley along with Kenny Dillingham. And so let's hear from a couple of those new Sun Devil verbal commits, talking with the guy that we were just talking about a moment ago, new Sun Devil or future Sun Devil wide receiver, Cameron Dyer. All right, Cam, let's start off with the big question. Why was Arizona State the right place for you?
I mean, honestly, it just felt like home while I was out there. I guess it's like that one saying, when you know, you know. And that's kind of just how I felt once I touched foot on the campus and I saw everything that Arizona State has to offer me. And another big factor that was important to me was that my family felt like it was home. And once I saw that once I saw that they felt like it was home for them and for me, that was a big deal. Because I want them to be comfortable as well, when they come to visit me and everything, and feel like Tempe is a good place to live and everything. So.
You mentioned you're coming in here on a visit. You get to see things up close. You get to meet these people, face to face. During the course of those few days on that official visit, what were some of the things that really kind of made the biggest impressions on you?
I mean, I would say at the dinner, I remember one of the steak dinners that they took us to. Coach Dillingham, he was just walking around and showing everybody his cards and his card tricks and everything. And it's not something you would expect from a head coach. You could tell that he's real down to earth and not really, I guess, standoffish. I guess you would say, like, he's real down to earth and he really likes his players and he's a players coach for sure. Another thing I guess would be that the coach that was taking me around, Coach Silver, he really he made a great impression on my family, and he just felt like he was like my older brother and like another role model that I could look up to, which is really important for me and my family. Everybody while we were there made us feel comfortable and made us feel like we were part of the family and everything. That's, like I said, that's really important to me, and I value family and everything. So that was real important.
You mentioned Coach Dillingham being kind of having that down-to-earth approach, and that genuineness is something that's kind of really jumped out to me over the last couple of years in talking to players and recruits. But when you look at Kenny Dillingham, the young leader of a major college football program, what kind of jumps out to you, and what kind of impressions do you have about Coach Dillingham's ability to lead a big-time college program?
I mean, I think he's a great leader. From what I can see, what I've experienced so far, I think he's a great leader. I mean, I think there's a reason why he's one of the youngest head coaches in college football. I mean, he's definitely earned that title. He's definitely done what he's done to get to where he's at right now. And I think he's, like I said, he's a great leader. And it's just the little things, honestly, the little things like when you go into team meetings and when he meets with us, like he makes sure to make sure that you feel like you're a part of the family and that you're not just a player to him, or he's not just the coach, but he's a mentor for you, and he's that kind of father figure for some guys, or older brother figure, whatever it may be. He's family, it seems like. And that's real important to some guys, and I know for sure that's important to me. So I mean, he's a great leader from what I can see. And I feel like more so not just on the field, like he's a great leader on the field, all the stuff everybody does, he's well respected. So but I guess I think where he separates himself from a lot of guys is just off the field. So
outside of the coaching staff and the support staff there, when you got to talk to the players and meet them and kind of just get a feel for kind of the vibe around the program, what's your feeling on kind of the culture of Sun Devil football and what Kenny Dillingham's trying to instill in Tempe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great culture. I think that a lot of the guys speak really highly of Coach Dillingham. I think they all say like how, like, the way he is, he's the way he was acted while the recruits are on visits or whatever it may be, like to the rest of the public or whatever. That's how he really is behind closed doors, and I got to see that a little bit. I mean, you don't get to see a whole lot, obviously. You can't really get a true like evaluation of how somebody is in 3 days, but you can definitely get a sense of it, and I felt that for sure. Yeah, so I think the players, to answer your question, I mean, I think the players speak very highly of him and of the rest of the coaching staff, and I think that culture of that family culture is real important to Coach Dillingham and the rest of the staff.
Of course, you're a tremendous athlete, and a number of schools are recruiting you at a number of positions. Of course, quarterback, wide receiver. Some teams like you at safety as well. How did that kind of future position and where schools viewed you, how much of that was a factor in your ultimate decision?
Yeah, I mean it was a tough decision in itself. Just figuring out which position I wanted to play, let alone the school that I wanted to play at. It's one of those weird things that like not a lot of kids go through. There are some kids that go through the process of, okay, am I going to play offense or defense, or okay, am I going to play receiver or running back, or okay, am I going to play safety or whatever it may be. But it's just weird for me because I'm being recruited as two on offense and then one on defense. So it's like it's kind of that weird thing. And I mean, quarterback's a position that obviously you have to have different tools and different skills, a different skill set necessary. So it's just it was a weird decision. It was a tough one. But I think that Arizona State and the rest of, or all the coaches, they helped make that decision a lot more easier because once I sat down with Coach Ward, he made that decision a lot more clear to me, and he did it. So he made the decision to stop playing quarterback in high school to play receiver. And so once I heard that, and once I saw that their plans for me were really big to them, then that's kind of when I knew. That's kind of when that switch flipped in my head.
Speaking of Coach Ward, of course, making that switch, and even he's seen some time behind center for Georgia. I believe he had a threw for 400 yards in one game at one point. But
Yeah.
having a guy like that who's blazed that path and obviously went on to a Hall of Fame caliber career. How much did that you mentioned kind of that switch flip? What were some of the things that he outlined, in those discussions and getting to know him that made you so comfortable with coming to Arizona State to play receiver?
Yeah, I mean, him and Coach Dillingham from the get go always said like how they thought that I was a great athlete, and just how they thought that I was tremendous on the field, but they think that I'm an NFL caliber guy, and I mean that's really important to hear a coach that is such a high level, and a player that played at such a high level, the highest level there is, and did it well for a long time. I mean, to hear them say those things and to genuinely show me the plan behind it and to show how much they meant that, I mean that means the world. I mean, I feel like that everything was genuine in what they're saying. And I mean, obviously, I got to put in the work. Nothing's going to be handed to me, and I'm not expecting that. But I feel like I said, their plan for me and everything else, I feel like it was all genuine. So I mean, that means the world to me.
You mentioned Coach Ward and his resume, and just of course outlining the plan for you. But that come next year you're going to be coached by a guy who's got a Super Bowl MVP trophy on
Right.
his mantle, 1,000 receptions in the league. Well, what does that just like mean to you to have that kind of guy, kind of mentoring you and helping to guide your path towards Sundays?
I mean, it means, like I said before, I mean, it means the world to me. I feel like everything that they said was really genuine. And I feel like I mean, there's nothing like, okay, hey, I'm gonna tell you this so that you can get here on campus, and then it's something completely different. I feel like they're honest. I mean, he was like, we already have a quarterback committed, and we need a kid like with your size and your speed, who's very unique and who has a lot of intelligence like you. I mean, he said that's a rare combination, and when you really step back and think of it, it is. I mean, and that makes me feel a lot better because I feel like my ceiling is a little bit higher at receiver. It may be a little bit higher at receiver than it might be at quarterback, and I mean, like I said. I mean, my ultimate goal is to make it to the NFL, and so I'm willing to do the things necessary to get there. If that means setting aside my quarterback dreams. So,
Of course, Heinz Ward made his name, not just catching the ball, but blocking downfield, being the NFL's
right.
premier blocking receiver. And he even has a phrase he rolled out during spring practice of "you got to block to get the rock." What
Hmm.
making that transition, over to wide receiver, going from quarterback, a guy who has his hands on the ball every play, but to receiver that's obviously going to be a target in the passing game. But what's your thoughts on just kind of being able to do that dirty work, the stuff that doesn't necessarily show up in the stat sheets, and helping the block downfield?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a guy that's willing to put my life on the line for my teammates, and I'm gonna stay true to that. I mean, even at the quarterback position, shoot, if I had to, throw a pass that, we got a reverse coming around, trick play or something, I got to go block a guy. I'm willing to do that because I mean, whatever, I'm willing to win by whatever means necessary. I guess I should say so. Yeah, I mean, I don't think honestly the transition will be like as physically hard for me. I feel like it'll be mentally. I mean, the way I approach the game, because it is different coming in through meetings, coming in through practice, and thinking like you're a quarterback, having a quarterback's kind of mindset. I mean, I guess it's gonna carry over to my receiver. to the receiver position, but it's just a little different because I mean you do have to do more dirty work and you do have to be a little bit more of a dog or whatever you would say. So I guess that is going to be a little different, but I feel like that's where it's going to be more so different is mentally and not physically.
Speaking
Because
of the
I feel like I mean I still need to build on everything, but I feel like I do have the physical capability of already stepping out on the field as a receiver.
speaking of that mental aspect, you mean, of course, receivers nothing new to you. I believe your sophomore season that you played receiver, got some all regional conference type of honors for that as well. But having that experience at quarterback and receiver, how making that transition to receiver at the college level, how much do you think that quarterback mindset and just that preparation, how you see the field and the game, is going to help you when you're lining up at receiver?
Yeah, I think it's gonna help it. Like, I think it's gonna help it a lot because I feel like as a quarterback, you're thinking like a quarterback, so you're kind of on the same wavelength. And I mean, that's obviously very important to have a great a connection with your quarterback as a receiver. So I think it's gonna help because I mean, I'm gonna know where to find the zone. If it's man. How to play it and everything like that. So I feel like it's gonna help me find space and it's gonna help me know how to run my routes and kind of how to be on the same wavelength as my quarterback and run the offense that we're running. So
Obviously, tremendous athleticism, and the coaching staff obviously sees you great potential on Sunday. For any of our listeners or viewers that have not seen in action or maybe caught your huddle film, give our folks a self scouting report. What are the things that you bring to the field?
I would say, I would say honestly, I could beat you just as well with my legs as my arm. And I feel like a lot of people miss out on that. I feel like some teams try to play me this past year, and they try to we're gonna take away the run, we're gonna try and fluster him. But I feel like in that we have great receivers. I have great receivers that are catching the ball for me, and that I trust them. So I feel like that's a big takeaway that I could beat you with my arm just as well as my legs. And I feel like ultimately, like I said, like I'm doing anything to win, and I feel like you can see that on the film a little bit. If it means going through a guy, if it means blocking. I mean, obviously quarterbacks don't get to do that a lot, but if that's what it means, by any means necessary. And so I mean, I feel like that's the thing that sticks out on my film. And I mean, a lot of the stuff doesn't go out on my film. Like it doesn't show that we started off the season 0-3, and had to overcome a bunch of adversity, but in that like. I had to over we as a team had to overcome a lot of adversity, but I did too internally, and I had to be I was forced to become a better leader and lead my guys. So I mean, I feel like those are like the main things that stick out on my film though. So
Speaking of that 0-3 start, that obviously some hurdles there, but then you guys reel off 10 straight, hoist the 6A state title there. What were some of the lessons that you learned from that? Obviously, some early setbacks, but you guys never gave in, and ultimately came away with the championship.
yeah, I mean, just really just learning how to be a better leader. I mean, you can't lead guys all the same way because I mean everybody's different. Everybody comes from different backgrounds and things like that. So I really had to learn how to lead a little bit better and how to lead certain guys a certain way because not everyone responds to the situations the same. So some guys were down, some guys wanted to quit, some guys just wanted to stop playing and kind of just be like, all right, this season's messed up, like it's whatever. And I really got on them and I made sure to stay on them to really remind them the importance of our season and tell them that it's not over. We still got 10 more games or however many. And so we just got to keep our head down. We just got to keep working. All everything will fall in place just the way we want it to if we keep working. Because I mean, that's just the thing I've learned. I guess the most too is just if you keep working at something, then my dad always says hard work beats talent when talent don't work hard, and I really believe in that. That hard work beats talent. So
Of course, on the way there, you put together, I believe, 55 total touchdowns, some
yeah.
absolute video game type of numbers there. You get named the Gatorade Player of the Year for New Mexico. What did that honor mean? Obviously, you said you have a team first attitude and getting those wins is the most important, but to be able to do that in such a way that you have that individual recognition and that individual production, what did that mean to you?
I mean, it meant a lot to me. I'm very blessed to be in the position that I'm in, and I know that I wake up every day thanking God for the position that I'm in. But honestly, I feel like I wouldn't have gotten here without my teammates. I mean, and my coaches. I mean, we had to figure out a way to be a better offense. I had to figure out a way to be a better quarterback, and like I said about leading and everything, I had to figure out a way to be a better leader, and we had to figure out ways to overcome our adversity. And so I feel like it feels great, but I wouldn't have gotten here with my teammates, and I know that, and my family and everything, all my support system. So I'm really thankful. I'm thankful for everything. I'm thankful to be in the position that I'm in. But I do know that I wouldn't have gotten here without everybody else. So
On this roster so far, there's of course, a lot of California guys, a lot of Texas guys, some
yeah,
Arizona guys, not a whole lot of folks from New Mexico, and not
not a whole
necessarily.
lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not necessarily a national hotbed of talent, but there's, of course, over the decades, there's been some real absolute dudes that have come out of your state. What's the football culture like in New Mexico?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's better than what people expect. I mean, obviously, you hear New Mexico football and you're like, oh, I mean, that's not good. Like, do they even have 6A out there? Guys ask me that. Some guys are like, is that in Mexico? Like, so, it's crazy. I mean, people don't really know. We got some ballers coming out of here. I mean, I feel like there's going to be a lot of more guys to come out and a lot of guys to shock a lot of people just because I feel like people don't look at us as a football state. And I mean, we're not the top dogs. We're not, Texas or California, obviously. We're not Florida, any of that stuff. So, I mean, I feel like there's some guys, though. I feel like there's some guys that can go play in those states and do just what we're doing here. So, I mean, I feel like there's going to be some dudes coming out, I feel like. So, I'm just glad to I'm just glad to be a representative of my state, and I'm proud to be a New Mexican. So,
Of course, next fall you'll be, or in 2025 you'll be playing in the Big 12 conference. What are your thoughts on ultimately stepping up to the big stage and in the Big 12?
yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I feel like it's gonna be a good experience. I feel like it's gonna be a good conference to go to, and I'm just excited. I'm ready to play, and I'm ready to go see what. I'm just ready to go, live that lifestyle and everything. So I'm beyond excited for sure.
And then when you look ahead to this fall, your final season at the high school level, and what are some of the goals you have set for yourself, for yourself, for your team, and also the things that you want to accomplish to prepare yourself to make that jump up next year to major college football?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I want to go. I definitely want to go undefeated, and I definitely want to win another state championship. I think we got to just put in the work that we've been putting in, and I think we'll be just fine. I mean, I think we got to put in perspective that everybody's gunning for us, and everybody we have that target on our back, and our coach tells us that every day. But we gotta practice like it. We gotta live like it pretty much. So I think I honestly think that nobody in the state could beat us, but we could beat ourselves if that makes sense. So I just feel like we gotta keep working and not get in our own way. But as far as goals go, I mean, just to win another state championship, and I mean, I feel like if we do that, all the other personal accolades will come. So I'm not really worried about it. But I mean, those are always nice. Like I really am appreciative of all that, and that is nice. So that would be nice to win all the other personal accolades I've won again. So.
Next up, here's offensive lineman Desean Bryant. All right, let's start off with the big question: why was Arizona State the right place for you and to continue your college career?
Um, I just like the culture that Coach Dillingham is building over there. I want to be a part of it, and Coach T and Coach Dillingham was showing me love. I feel like it was the perfect school for me, and they got the Texas to Tempe movement pushing. So I was like, why not join it? Yeah.
So when you took your visit and you were able to kind of see things up close and see the facilities, get to know the program, meet these people face to face, what were some of the most impactful things that made the deepest impression on you?
It was just showing that the coaches actually care for the players. They want them to be successful through football and after football. They was really pushing the school part of it and all the things about ASU that they offer. I just like that a lot.
You getting to know your future head coach and Kenny Dillingham, obviously one of the younger guys in the country. But what kind of jumped out to you about Kenny and the program that he's trying to build here?
I feel like he wanted to be there for a long time. I didn't know he was from Arizona. I didn't know he grew up in Arizona, so that blew me. Like that blew my mind. Like you coaching from the school that you went to. It was like, yeah, that's something I could see. I want him leading me into something.
And looking at your future position coach and Coach Saga, obviously a guy who has a pretty good resume of developing offensive linemen throughout his career at various stops. What kind of jumps out about Saga and the things that you're most excited to learn from him?
I could learn that he could teach me the right stuff that it helped me get to the league. He just showed me the place he has been. He coached at Army, a whole bunch of other schools. Um, he a great coach. He could get me to the league, and I hope that he gets me there.
You're one of 5 current commits in the 2025 class along the offensive line. What kind of jumps out to you most about this group of linemen there that are coming in with you?
They're very talented. All of us are highly recruited, and I like that a lot, that we can all come together and be a great starting lineup for ASU.
For any folks that might not have seen you in action at Duncanville, or maybe caught your film, give our listeners and viewers a scouting report on what you bring to the field as along that offensive line.
A big, long, physical lineman. I'm great in pass protection. I got long arms, so it's easy to keep my quarterback protected. I'm physical. I played to the last whistle.
What are some of your favorite parts about playing in the trenches? Where the physicality is just so paramount.
I just like the physical part. It's all a mind game. You come out there, you gotta be physical before they admit to the game. I just like that about the trenches. You get to hit somebody every play.
And getting to know the offensive scheme, obviously Kenny Dillingham's a guy who is pretty well known as an offensive mastermind. Marcus Arroyo, the new offensive coordinator, kind of just knowing, you're getting to get a sense of what this offense is going to look like going into the future. What kind of things kind of stand out to you most about this Sun Devil offensive attack?
We could run the ball, and I like running the ball, so why not?
You mentioned of course, the Tempe to Texas, or the Texas to Tempe pipeline that's been flowing since Coach Kenny's been here. Yourself, just kind of the latest addition there. What does that mean to you to be joining a roster where there's so many Texans? I believe the current count's over 20 at this point. What is it like to just have so many fellow Texans on that roster with you?
I mean, it's people that's from the same place as me, so they could tell me how it's going there. That's really also a reason why I committed to. But yeah, it's people that's from where I'm from there already, and it's just like home, really.
What makes Texas guys different? Obviously, Texas is one of the hotbeds of high school football, and you're playing at such a high level within that state. What is it about playing Texas high school football that really kind of helps prepare guys for that next level?
I feel like we just work more harder than other states. Everything in football. I mean, everything in Texas is just football. So we got the best athletes, bigger athletes. It's just everything about Texas is better in general than other states.
In talking to some of the guys over the last couple of recruiting classes, it's obviously the Texas pipeline's flowing, but also ASU has historically drawn a lot from California. It seems like there's a kind of a friendly rivalry almost, of just kind of the Cali Devils and the guys coming in through the Texas to Tempe pipeline. What's your read on that kind of that friendly rivalry to this point?
Cali swear they has better athletes than Texas, so that's just the rivalry I guess we have. Cali thinks they have better football than Texas, which is not true. It's not true.
So, of course, in addition to standing out individually, your team has had terrific success the last couple of years. I believe back-to-back state titles at the 6A level for Duncanville. Having that success and winning as a team and being part of that winning culture, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've taken away from that you feel are going to help prepare you to make that jump up to major college football?
I know how to win. I know what it takes to win. So I feel like I could go into ASU with that mindset to help lead our team to victory, knowing that we got to work hard in the offseason more than anybody else. And I feel like it just take us to a different level.
And, of course, you'll be playing the ball in the Big 12, making that shift from the West Coast to kind of a more Texas-centric conference. What does that mean to you? What excites you most about playing football in the Big 12 conference?
That most Big 12 teams are in Texas, so I could come home and a lot of my people could see me play all the time. And just, that's it.
You ready for life out here in the desert? Right now, we're approaching 110, 115 these summers. Granted, it doesn't have the Texas humidity, thankfully. But you ready for desert life?
Yes, I just when I went recently, it was hot, but Texas hotter in my opinion. But it's still a breeze. I feel like I'll be used to it. It shouldn't be nothing to me too much.
So, of course, you got one season left of high school ball. It looks like you guys will be going for a three-peat. But what are some of the things that you're looking forward to do this fall, this upcoming senior season, both as a team, but also yourself to prepare yourself to jump up and to play in the Big 12 next year?
Mm, for one, yeah, you should. We all know I want a three-peat. Then I also want to be first team All State, first team All District, first team everything. So to be a high standard to let people know I'm one of the best tackles in the state.
And finally, here's linebacker Lee Puka Fuimaono. All right, Puka, let's start off with the big question. Why was Arizona State the right place for you?
Man, Arizona State, like instantly, it felt at home. Coach Coop and the whole defensive staff were very good about consistently staying on me and recruiting me. I felt like they were very diligent while they were recruiting me. They also talked to me a lot about ball, but they also uh, showed efforts to know me and my family as people, not just me as a football player. So I thought that was really big.
Of course, recently took a visit and got to see things up close, got to meet all these folks in the program face to face with a number of other guys on that trip as well who've also, like you, committed to be Sun Devils. During those couple days, what really kind of jumped out to you most about your future home?
When me and the family were there, we were talking about it whenever we had the time to talk about it amongst ourselves. And me and my pops and my mom were talking about it. It just checked off all, like four of the boxes that we had for a school that I would be going to, which those boxes would be like religion, my relationship with the coaches, and the nutrition and the recovery that they had there. And just for me, being of the LDS community, since I'm not serving my mission, I needed a place where my religion was. I needed to keep it close to me. So Coach Sanga and Coach Nick Soto, they did a big effort for me to actually take me to the institution on campus, and walk around, talk about it. Coach Song actually has like a group leader who takes a group of the LDS boys to go to the service, go take the sacrament. So that really stood out for me because my religion is a big part of my recruiting process. And then, go ahead.
Oh, no, please continue.
Oh, and then relationship with the coaches, like the whole trip I was there, like not only Coach Coop, Coach Nick, and from the GAs all the way to Coach Dillingham. It was like an instant connection with all of us. And then nutrition and recovery goes hand in hand. They have all of the bells and whistles over there, so I can't really complain about that.
And so, when you just get to be around the guys and kind of get a sense for the program, what's your read on kind of just the overall culture that Kenny Dillingham is trying to build here in Tempe?
It's definitely different from last year's team, which a bunch of the coaches were saying. Like now, if you just look at the guys, you could just tell like they're really close with each other. My night out with the players, we went bowling, and I actually told this to Coach Dillingham. I said when we went out, like defense wasn't only hanging out with defense was with offense, and he said that was a big part of just how everybody's close to each other.
And of course, you are going to be a continued part of the as they're calling it, the poly pipeline into Tempe. So many guys in the last couple of classes are really kind of joining this program. What does it mean to you to kind of be a part of that poly pipeline, and what kind of impact do you think it has, or can have on this Sun Devil football roster?
Man, I'm loving this whole poly pipeline thing. Like us Polynesians, I'd say we're like a smaller community, and it's just really good, and to see that ASU is definitely making like a notice for it and getting that thing together. It's going to be very special.
Getting to know Coach Dillingham throughout this process and ultimately making the decision to be a part of his program. What jumps out to you about Kenny? One of the younger coaches in the country, but a guy who's a ASU alum in his own right. So what kind of jumps out about what he's trying to do and his vision for the future of the program?
I see he's definitely trying to build something great, and I told him that actually. And the first question I asked him when we had a meeting, when I walked into his room, was, "How open are you with the players? Like, is your door open?" He's like, "Man, that shouldn't even be a question. Like, you shouldn't even ask me. Go ask the players." And later that day, I did go ask the players. And he's like, "Man, Coach Dillingham is one of the most down to earth people. He's very good at connecting with you individually and just on a different basis, not only football but at a personable level, which is for me and my family is huge."
Your future in Tempe seems to be at linebacker. Of course, AJ Cooper, the position coach there, getting to know him throughout the recruiting process, what kind of jumps out about Coach Cooper, and what stands out about what you think he'll be able to do for you in elevating your game?
Coach Coop, he's been on me actually since my freshman year when he was at Washington State. I remember one of my spring practices. He had this big old iPad. It was just recording me the whole time, and just ever since then, he's always been in contact when he could be in contact with me, and just really making that relationship defined, and really being on me. And what he's doing right now, sitting in a couple of his meetings with the players, and like the individual meetings we had, I just learned a lot from him already. He teaches it easy for the players to learn. Like, not everybody learns physical, and not everybody learns like just on the board. So everybody's different. So what he's doing is pretty good.
Getting to know ASU's defensive scheme, Brian Ward obviously likes to keep things pretty aggressive. What jumps out to you about how Coach Ward and Coach Cooper like to use the linebackers?
What jumps out to me is they're putting us, Coach Ward and Coach Cooper are putting not only me, but all the defensive players just in the right spot to make the plays. And for that, it's huge because everybody has to produce to, get that defensive win.
Now, give our listeners and our viewers a self-scouting report. What kind of skills do you bring to this football field?
Just talking with Coach Coop, my skill set, my speed, and I'm pretty physical when it comes down to blowing up blocks and just making the big hits on the running back. And I can move around in space, so I think I'd be valuable to the ASU defense.
I believe I saw something on your Twitter feed that recently you mentioning that speed, clocking in close to 21, 22 miles an hour there.
Yeah, man, I'm trying to break that 21. As soon as I break that 21, I should be good.
Obviously, ASU's made such a big effort in terms of recruiting Texas, but California has historically been the most fertile recruiting grounds for the Sun Devils. What do you think that a California guy, these Cali Devils are going to be bringing to this roster?
Man, there's this big debate about who got the best football, so you already know what I'm gonna say. I firmly believe Cali does have the best football. We got some of the best competition, and it's not all the competition is not in one place. It's all spread out throughout the county. So I feel like all of us Cali Devils bring that edge to us to the table.
Talking about those Cali Devils and that edge. What are some of the you think the traits are of a California bred player? You mentioned the competition, of course. Playing week in, week out on those Friday nights, and what do you think going through kind of those rigors of the difficult California slate does to help guys bring their A game every week?
There's just like a high caliber of talent out here, and you're bound to play one of those guys, one of those teams, and it's just as a whole makes you a better player, and just bringing that to the next level gives you a head start.
Do you think that there's a kind of a friendly rivalry going on with maybe the Cali Devils and the Texas Tempe Pipeline guys?
I mean, once it gets to college, it's going to be a friendly. It's going to be friendly, but as of right now, I think we're just trying to decide who has the best football.
Of course, your future is going to be in the Big 12 conference, and unfortunately, the Pac-12 is behind us. But what are your thoughts on future Saturdays? Playing across the Big 12.
Man, the competition is going to be crazy. Game days is going to be crazy. We're going to be ready.
And then when you look ahead, your final season of prep ball before making the jump up to major college football, what are some of your goals? What are some of the things you want to accomplish this fall, both as an individual and team, and also to get ready for the jump up to the next level?
Individual team, our team looks good so far. We're just really building that bond, and then before making that jump up to the college level, I'm really making sure I'm staying healthy, and then always staying in the weight room with recovery and nutrition, and just making sure my body is where it's supposed to be.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Speak of the Devils. I'd like to thank our 3 new Sun Devil verbal commits for joining the show. This obviously is the off season, kind of the doldrums, but that doesn't mean things are going to be slowing down with Sun Devil football, with Speak of the Devils. A lot of good things that are happening now and in the near future as we approach fall camp and the start of the 2024 season. Follow the show on all the social media channels. You can follow on Twitter at SOTD Podcast, on Instagram at Speak of the Devils. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, and follow me on all things social at BDenny29.
And just to echo what Brad was saying, just stay tuned to what we've got going on in the coming weeks. We've got some pretty cool announcements that'll be coming through the shoot, some stuff that I think y'all will like, some new things that we've got in mind. So again, just go on and stay tuned, and you can tag along and follow me at Joe Healy 42. And please be sure to support our awesome sponsors. I know that y'all do that on a very, very regular basis. That means the world to us, and obviously means the world to the individuals and the businesses that we partner with, because we only partner with folks that are dedicated to supporting the Sun Devil community. And of course, that list consists of Jones Auto Group. If you are in the market for a new vehicle, check them out. DevilsDigest.com. Mentioned it even just a few times in this show. You got to be locked in. Get a subscription to DevilsDigest.com. Of course, ASU's page of the Rivals.com network. Get on out to Cactus Sports. Gear up. I got my Iron Devils shirts in. My lifts are going through the roof. World records being shattered. It's a good time to be alive there. Get on out to the Cactus Sports locations on Mill Avenue, or check them out online at cactussports.com. Burrito Express, you got to get out there. Fuel up at BE. They've got all these locations that I'm sure that you know about. Of course, the one not far from Mountain America Stadium there near ASU. Others across the valley as well. Incredible family-owned business, as supportive of ASU athletics as it gets. So hook them up. Do the same for Spaghetti Shack, of course, owned and operated by a former Sparky, the Sun Devil. They've got incredible things going on, so support them. And lastly, but certainly not least, Sun Devil Family Charities. Support them. They do great things in this community. You can learn more about them and how you can help them out at sundevilfamily.org.
And also support the good brand at homefieldapparel.com. Use offer code SOTD23 at checkout to get 15% off your first purchase. And rumor has it they're dropping an NAU collection here in a couple weeks. I know that there's probably a lot of house divideds, and you know that's the other Arizona college. They're okay. Lumberjacks are cool. And
my goddaughter's going to be a lumberjack here coming up in the fall, starting her freshman year. My sister is an NAU alum. So yeah, there's no. We always, when we have our guy Mitch Stroman on when ASU plays NAU, we have the greatest time. Yeah, there's no ill will. They beat you over a couple years. I think everybody's all right with them.
Yeah, so use our offer code SOTD23, buy a NAU shirt as kind of a celebration and as a thanks for their big win over the Cats a couple of years ago. And, after you make sure you take care of our amazing sponsors, drop us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. Joe and I will be back with you next week, both on the podcast and on TV, with a special in-studio guest and a deeper dive into the new hire of ASU Athletic Director Graham Rossini.